Hello and welcome back to Storytime Classics Live. I am your host, Bo Heckman. This is produced by Southwest Shakespeare Company. Today we have a guest reader, LeeAnn Jensen. Hello, welcome to
Hi.
Storytime Classics Live. This is your first time reading, isn't it?
Yes, online. Yeah. So
Big
all
day.
online period reading. So this is cool.
Don't be afraid. It's a very lovely audience. What are you going to be reading for us today? As if I didn't know, but I just want you to tell us.
No worries. I am reading from Ray Bradbury. So they're a little spooky and they're kind of those stories that make you think. They're very cerebral. So one is The Martian and the other is A Sound of Thunder.
Really, really great choices there. Those are spooky and very Twilight Zoney.
Yes,
So
they are. That's a good way to
excellent.
put
Thank
it.
you so much for joining us today and reading. And I will turn things over to you, but I will first remind our viewing audience that our Fall Festival tickets are on sale. Please, if you would like more information on this, please go to info@swshakespeare.org for more information on this wonderful package of performers who will be live in person here, but also we will be streaming them live so you can buy tickets to see them in the intimacy of your own home and just enjoy these incredible solo artists who are sharing their talents with us. So please, yes, do go to info@swshakespeare.org for more information on Fall Festival tickets. Okay, that being said, I now turn things over to LeeAnn Jensen, our wonderful guest reader today. LeeAnn, the show is yours.
Thank you, Bo. I really appreciate that. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Our first story, maybe a little bit about me also. I have been wardrobe supervisor for Southwest Shakespeare Company off and on since, I believe, 2008. And they are my friends, mostly my family now, and I am really honored to be here. So let's get started. Oh, I have to tell you, there is some ambient sound because my roof is being replaced, but I'm thinking it'll add to the story. Okay, here we are. A Sound of Thunder, Ray Bradbury. The sign on the wall seemed to quaver under a film of sliding warm water. Eccles felt his eyelids blink over his stare, and the sign burned in this momentary darkness. Time Safari, Inc. Safaris to any year in the past. You name the animal, we take you there, you shoot it. Warm phlegm gathered in Eccles' throat. He swallowed and pushed it down. The muscles around his mouth formed a smile as he put his hand slowly out upon the air, and in that hand waved a check for $10,000 to the man behind the desk. Does this safari guarantee I come back alive? We guarantee nothing, said the official, except the dinosaurs, he turned. This is Mr. Travis, your safari guide in the past. He'll tell you what and where to shoot. If he says no shooting, no shooting. If you disobey instructions, there's a stiff penalty of another $10,000 plus possible government action on your return. Eccles glanced across the vast office at a mass and tangle, a snaking and humming of wires and steel boxes, at an aurora that flickered, now orange, now silver, now blue. There was a sound like a gigantic bonfire burning all of the time, all the years and all the parchment calendars, all the hours piled high and set aflame. A touch of the hand in this burning would, on the instant, beautifully reverse itself. Eccles remembered the wording in the advertisements to the letter. Out of chars and ashes, out of dust and coals, like golden salamanders, the old years, the green years might leap. Roses sweeten the air. White hair turn Irish black. Wrinkles vanish, all. Everything fly back to seed. Flee death, rush down to their beginnings. Sun rise in western skies and set in glorious easts. Moons eat themselves opposite to the custom, all and everything cupping one in another like Chinese boxes. rabbits into hats. All and everything returned to the fresh death, the seed of death, the green death, to the time before the beginning. A touch of a hand might do it, the merest touch of a hand. Unbelievable, Eccles breathed. The light of the machine on his thin face, a real time machine. He shook his head. Makes you think, if the election had gone badly yesterday, I might be here now running away from the results. Thank God Keith won. He'll make a fine president of the United States. Yes, said the man behind the desk, we're lucky. If Deutscher had gotten in, we'd have the worst kind of dictatorship. There's an anti-everything man for you. A militarist, anti-Christ, anti-human, anti-intellectual. People called us up, joking, but not joking, said if Deutscher became president, they wanted to go live in 1492. Of course, it's not our business to conduct escapes, but to form safaris. Anyway, Keith's president now. All you got to worry about is shooting my dinosaur. Eccles finished it for him. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard, the most incredible monster in history. Sign this release. Anything happens to you, we're not responsible. Those dinosaurs are hungry. Eccles flushed angrily. Trying to scare me? Frankly, yes. We don't want anyone going who will panic at the first shot. 6 safari leaders were killed last year and a dozen hunters. We're here to give you the severest thrill a hunter ever asked for. Traveling you back 60 million years to bag the biggest game in all of time. Your personal check's still there. Tear it up. Mr. Eccles looked at the check. His fingers twitched. Good luck, he said. Good luck, said the man behind the desk. Mr. Travis, he's all yours. They moved silently across the room, taking their guns with them toward the machine, toward the silver metal and the roaring light. First a day, then a night, and then a day, and then a night. Then it was day, night, night. A week, a month, a year, a decade. AD 2055, AD 2019, 1999, 1957. Gone. The machine roared. They put on their oxygen helmets and tested the intercoms. Eccles swayed on the padded seat, his face pale, his jaw stiff. He felt the trembling in his arms, and he looked down and found his hands tight on the new rifle. There were 4 other men in the machine. Travis, the safari leader, his assistant, L'Esperance, and 2 other hunters, Billings and Kramer. They sat looking at each other, and the years blazed around them. Can these guns get a dinosaur cold? Eccles felt his mouth saying. If you hit them right, said Travis on the helmet radio. Some dinosaurs have 2 brains, one in the head, another far down the spinal column. We stay away from those. That's stretching luck. Put your first 2 shots in the eyes if you can. Blind them and go back into the brain. The machine howled. Time was a film run backward. Suns fled and 10 million moons fled after them. Think, said Eccles, every hunter that ever lived would envy us today. This makes Africa seem like Illinois. The machine slowed. Its scream fell to a murmur. The machine stopped. The sun stopped in the sky. The fog that had enveloped the machine blew away, and they were in an old time, a very old time indeed. 3 hunters and 2 safari heads with their blue metal guns across their knees. Christ isn't born yet, said Travis. Moses had not gone up to the mountains to talk with God. The pyramids are still in the earth, waiting to be cut out and put up. Remember that. Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Hitler, none of them exists. The man nodded. That, Mr. Travis pointed, is the jungle of 60,002,055 years before President Keith. He indicated a metal path that struck off into green wilderness over streaming swamp among giant ferns and palms, and that, he said, is the path laid by Time Safari for your use. It floats 6 inches above the earth. doesn't touch so much as one grass blade, flower, or tree. It's an anti-gravity metal. Its purpose is to keep you from touching this world of the past in any way. Stay on the path. Don't go off it. I repeat, don't go off for any reason. If you fall off, there's a penalty, and don't shoot any animal we don't okay. Why? Asked Eccles. They sat in the ancient wilderness. Far birds' cries blew on a wind, and the smell of tar and an old salt sea, moist grasses and flowers the color of blood. We don't want to change the future. We don't belong here in the past. The government doesn't like us here. We have to pay big graft to keep our franchise. A time machine is finicky business. Not knowing it, we might kill an important animal, a small bird, a roach, a flower even, thus destroying an important link in a growing species. That's not clear, said Eccles. All right, Travis continued. Say we accidentally kill one mouse here. That means all the future families of this one particular mouse are destroyed, right? Right. And all the families of all the families of all the families of that one mouse. With a stamp of your foot, you annihilate first one, then a dozen, then 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 possible mice. So they're dead, said Eccles. So what? So what? Travis snorted quietly. Well, what about the foxes? That'll need those mice to survive. For want of 10 mice, a fox dies. For want of 10 foxes, a lion starves. For want of a lion, all manner of insects, vultures, infinite billions of life forms are thrown into chaos and destruction. Eventually, it all boils down to this. 59 million years later, a caveman, one of a dozen on the entire world, goes hunting wild boar or saber-toothed tiger for food. But you, friend, have stepped on all the tigers in that region. By stepping on one single mouse, so the caveman starves. And the caveman, please note, is not just any expendable man. No, he's an entire future nation. From his loins would have sprung 10 sons, from their loins 100 sons, and thus onward into a civilization. Destroy this one man, and you destroy a race, a people, an entire history of life. It is comparable to slaying some of Adam's grandchildren. The stomp of your foot on one mouse could start an earthquake, the effects of which could shake our earth and destinies down through time to their very foundations. With the death of that one caveman, 1 billion others yet unborn are throttled in the womb. Perhaps Rome never rises on its 7 hills. Perhaps Europe is forever a dark forest, and only Asia waxes healthy and teeming. Step on a mouse and you crush the pyramids. Step on a mouse and you leave your print like a Grand Canyon across eternity. Queen Elizabeth might never be born. Washington might not cross the Delaware. There might never be a United States at all, so be careful. Stay on the path. Never step off. I see, said Eccles. Then it wouldn't pay for us to even touch the grass? Correct. Crushing certain plants could add up infinitesimally. A little error here would multiply in 60 million years, all out of proportion. Of course, maybe our theory is wrong. Maybe time can't be changed by us, or maybe it can be changed only in little subtle ways. A dead mouse here makes an insect imbalance there, a population disproportionate later, a bad harvest further on, a depression, mass starvation, and finally, a change in social temperament in far-flung countries. Something much more subtle like that. Perhaps only a soft breath, a whisper, a hair, pollen on the air, such a slight change that unless you look close, you wouldn't see it. Who knows? Who really can say he knows? We don't know. We're guessing. But until we do know for certain whether our messing around in time can make a big roar or a little rustle in history, we're being careful. This machine, this path, your clothing and bodies were sterilized, as you know, before the journey. We wear these oxygen helmets so we can't introduce our bacteria into an ancient atmosphere. How do we know which animals to shoot? "They're marked with red paint," said Travis. "Today, before our journey, we sent L'Esperance back here with the machine. He came to this particular era and followed certain animals. Studying them?" "Right," said L'Esperance. "I track them through their entire existence, noting which of them lives longest. Very few. How many times they mate? Not often. Life's short. When I find one that's going to die, when a tree falls on him, or one that drowns in a tar pit, I note the exact hour, minute, and second. I shoot a paint bomb. It leaves a red patch on his side. We can't miss it. Then I correlate our arrival in the past so that we meet the monster not more than 2 minutes before he would have died anyway. This way, we kill only animals with no future that are never going to mate again. You see how careful we are?" "But if you come back this morning in time," said Eccles eagerly, "you must have bumped into us, our safari. Did it turn out? Was it successful? Did all of us get through alive?" Travis and L'Esperance gave each other a look. "That'd be a paradox," said the latter. "Time doesn't permit that sort of mess a man meeting himself. When such occasion threaten, time steps aside like an airplane hitting an air pocket. You felt the machine jump just before we stopped? That was us passing ourselves on the way back to the future. We saw nothing. There's no way of telling if this expedition was a success, if we got our monster, or whether all of us, meaning you, Mr. Eccles, got out alive." Eccles smiled palely. "Cut that," said Travis sharply. "Everyone on his feet." They were ready to leave the machine. The jungle was high, and the jungle was broad, and the jungle was the entire world forever and forever. Sounds like music and sounds like flying tents filled the sky, and those were pterodactyls soaring with cavernous gray wings, gigantic bats of delirium and night fever. Eccles balanced on the narrow path, aimed his rifle playfully. "Stop that," said Travis. "Don't even aim for fun, blast you. If your guns should go off—" Eccles flushed. "Where's our Tyrannosaurus?" L'Esperance checked his wristwatch. "Up ahead. We'll bisect his trail in 60 seconds. Look for the red paint. Don't shoot till we give the word. Stay on the path. Stay on the path." They moved forward in the wind of morning. "Strange," murmured Eccles. "Up ahead, 60 million years, election day over, Keith made president, everyone celebrating. And here we are, 1,000,000 years lost and they don't exist. The things we worried about for months, a lifetime, not even born or thought of yet." "Safety catches off, everyone," ordered Travis. "You, first shot, Eccles. Second, Billings. Third, Kramer." "I've hunted tiger, wild boar, buffalo, elephant, and now this is it," said Eccles. "I'm shaking like a kid." "Ah," said Travis. Everyone stopped. Travis raised his hand. "Ahead," he whispered, "in the mist. There he is. There's his royal majesty now." The jungle was wide and full of twitterings, rustlings, murmurs, and sighs. Suddenly it had all ceased, as if someone had shut a door. Silence. A sound of thunder. Out of the mist, 100 yards away, came Tyrannosaurus Rex. "It," whispered Eccles. "It." "Shh!" It came on great, oiled, resilient, striding legs. It towered 30 feet above half the trees, a great evil god folding its delicate watchmaker's claws close to its oily reptilian chest. Each lower leg was a piston, 1,000 pounds of white bone sunk in thick ropes of muscle, sheathed over a gleaming of pebbled skin like the mail of a terrible warrior. Each thigh was a ton of meat, ivory, and steel mesh. And from the great breathing cage of the upper body, those two delicate arms dangled out front. Arms with hands which might pick up and examine men like toys, while the snake neck coiled, and the head itself, a ton of sculptured stone, lifted easily upon the sky. Its mouth gaped, exposing offensive teeth like daggers. Its eyes rolled, ostrich eggs, empty of all expression save hunger. It closed its mouth in a death grin. It ran, its pelvic bones crushing aside trees and bushes, its taloned feet clawing damp earth, leaving prints 6 inches deep wherever it settled its weight. It ran with a gliding ballet step, far too poised and balanced for its 10 tons. It moved into a sunlit area warily, its beautifully reptilian hands feeling the air. Why, Eccles twitched his mouth. It could reach up and grab the moon. Shh, Travis jerked angrily. He hasn't seen us yet. It can't be killed, Eccles pronounced this verdict quietly, as if there could be no argument. He had weighed the evidence, and this was his considered opinion. The rifle in his hands seemed a cap gun. We're fools to come here. This is impossible. Shut up, hissed Travis. Nightmare. Turn round, commanded Travis. Walk quietly to the machine. We'll remit half your fee. I didn't realize it would be this big, said Eccles. I miscalculated, that's all, and now I want out. It sees us. There's the red paint on its chest. The tyrant lizard raised itself. Its armored flesh glittered like 1,000 green coins. The coins, crusted with slime, steamed. In the slime, tiny insects wriggled, so the entire body seemed to twitch and undulate. Even while the monster itself did not move, it exhaled. The stink of raw flesh blew down the wilderness. Get me out of here, said Eccles. It was never like this before. I was always sure I'd come through alive. I had good guides, good safari, and good safety. This time, I figured wrong. I've met my match, and I admit it. This is too much for me to get hold of. Don't run, said L'Esperance. Turn around. Hide in the machine. Yes, Eccles seemed to be numb. He looked at his feet as if trying to make the move. He gave a grunt of helplessness. Eccles! He took a few steps, blinking, shuffling. Not that way! The monster at the first motion lunged forward with a terrible scream. It covered 100 yards in 6 seconds. The rifles jerked up and blazed fire. A windstorm from the beast's mouth engulfed them in the stench of slime and old blood. The monster roared, teeth glittering with sun. The rifles cracked again. Their sound was lost in shriek and lizard thunder. The great level of the reptile's tail swung up, lashed sideways. Trees exploded in clouds of leaf and branch. The monster twitched its jeweler's hands down to fondle at the men, to twist them in half, to crush them like berries, to cram them into its teeth and its screaming throat. Its boulder stone eyes leveled with the men. They saw themselves mirrored. They fired at the metallic eyelids in the blazing black iris. Like a stone idol, like a mountain avalanche, Tyrannosaurus fell. Thundering, it clutched trees, pulled them with it. It wrenched and tore the metal path. The men flung themselves back and away. The body hit 10 tons of cold flesh and stone. The guns fired. The monster lashed its armored tail, twitched its snake jaws, and lay still. A fount of blood spurted from its throat. Somewhere inside, a sack of fluids burst. Sickening gushes drenched the hunters. They stood red and glistening. The thunder faded. The jungle was silent. After the avalanche, a green peace. After the nightmare, morning. Billings and Kramer sat on the pathway and threw up. Travis and L'Esperance stood with smoking rifles, cursing steadily. In the time machine on his face, Eccles lay shivering. He had found his way back to the path, climbed into the machine. Travis came walking, glanced at Eccles, took cotton gauze from a metal box, and returned to the others who were sitting on the path. Clean up. They wiped the blood from their helmets. They began to curse too. The monster lay, a hill of solid flesh. Within you could hear the sighs and murmurs as the furthest chambers of it died, the organs malfunctioning, liquids running a final instant from pocket to sac to spleen, everything shutting off, closing up forever. It was like standing by a wrecked locomotive or a steam shovel at quitting time, all valves being released or levered tight. Bones cracked, the tonnage of its own flesh off balance. Dead weight snapped the delicate forearms caught underneath. The meat settled, quivering. Another cracking sound. Overhead, a gigantic tree branch broke from its heavy mooring, fell. It crashed upon the dead beast with finality. There, L'Esperance checked his watch, right on time. That's the giant tree that was scheduled to fall and kill this animal originally. He glanced at the two others. You want the trophy picture? What? We can't take a trophy back to the future. The body has to stay right here where it would have died originally, so the insects, birds, and bacteria can get at it as they were intended to. Everything in balance. The body stays, but we can take a picture of you standing near it. The two men tried to think, but gave up, shaking their heads. They let themselves be led along the metal path. They sank wearily into the machine cushions. They gazed back at the ruined monster, the stagnating mound where already strange reptilian birds and golden insects were busy at the steaming armor. A sound on the floor of the time machine stiffened them. Eccles sat there, shivering. I'm sorry, he said at last. Get up, cried Travis. Eccles got up. Go out on that path alone, said Travis. He had his rifle pointed. You're not coming back in the machine. We're leaving you here. L'Esperance seized Travis's arm. Wait! Stay out of this. Travis shook his hand away. The fool nearly killed us, but isn't that so much? No. It's his shoes. Look at them. He ran off the path. That ruins us. We'll forfeit thousands of dollars of insurance. We guarantee no one leaves the path. He left it. Oh, the fool. I'll have to report this to the government. They might revoke our license to travel. Who knows what he's done to time, to history? Take it easy. All he did was kick up some dirt. How do we know? Cried Travis. We don't know anything. It's all a mystery. Get out of here, Eccles. Eccles fumbled his shirt. I'll pay anything. $100,000. Travis glared at Eccles' checkbook and spat. Go out there. The monster's next to the path. Stick your arms up to your elbows in his mouth. Then you can come back with us. That's unreasonable. The monster's dead, you idiot. The bullets can't be left behind. They don't belong in the past. They might change anything. Here's my knife. Dig them out. The jungle was alive again, full of the old tremorings and bird cries. Eccles turned slowly to regard the primeval garbage dump, that hill of nightmares and terror. After a long time, like a sleepwalker, he shuffled out along the path. He returned shuddering 5 minutes later, his arms soaked and red to the elbows. He held out his hands. Each held a number of steel bullets. Then he fell. He lay where he fell, not moving. You didn't have to make him do that, said L'Esperance. Didn't I? It's too early to tell. Travis nudged the still body. He'll live. Next time he won't go hunting game like this. Okay. He jerked his thumb wearily at L'Esperance. Switch on. Let's go home. 1492, 1776, 1812. They cleaned their hands and faces. They changed their caking shirts and pants. Eccles was up and around again, not speaking. Travis glared at him for a full 10 minutes. Don't look at me, cried Eccles. I haven't done anything. Who can tell? Just ran off the path, that's all. A little mud on my shoes. What you want me to do? Get down and pray? We might need it. I'm warning you, Eccles. I might kill you yet. I've got my gun ready. I'm innocent. I've done nothing. 1999, 2000, 2055. The machine stopped. Get out, said Travis. The room was there as they had left it, but not the same as they had left it. The same man sat behind the same desk, but the same man did not quite sit behind the same desk. Travis looked around swiftly. Everything okay here? He snapped. Fine. Welcome home. Travis did not relax. He seemed to be looking through the one high window. Okay, Eccles, get out. Don't ever come back. Eccles could not move. You heard me, said Travis. What are you staring at? Eccles stood, smelling of the air, and there was a thing to the air, a chemical taint, so subtle, so slight that only a faint cry of his subliminal senses warned him it was there. The colors, white, gray, blue, orange in the wall, in the furniture, in the sky beyond the window were And there was a feel. His flesh twitched. His hands twitched. He stood drinking the oddness with the pores of his body. Somewhere, someone must have been screaming one of those whistles that only a dog can hear. His body screamed silence in return. Beyond this room, beyond this wall, beyond this man who was not quite the same man seated at that desk that was not quite the same desk, lay an entire world of streets and people. What sort of world it was now, there was no telling. He could feel them moving there, beyond the walls, almost like so many chess pieces blown in a dry wind. But the immediate thing was the sign painted on the office wall, the same sign he had read earlier today on first entering. Somehow the sign had changed. Time Safari Inc. Safaris to any year in the past. You name the animal, we take you there, you shoot it. Eccles felt himself fall into a chair. He fumbled crazily at the thick slime on his boots. He held a clod of dirt, trembling. No, it can't be. Not a little thing like that. No. Embedded in the mud, glistening green and gold and black, was a butterfly, a very beautiful and very dead butterfly. Not a little thing like that, not a butterfly, cried Eccles. It fell to the floor, an exquisite thing, a small thing that could upset balances and knock down a line of small dominoes, and then big dominoes, then gigantic dominoes, all down the years across time. Eccles' mind whirled. It couldn't change things. Killing one butterfly couldn't be that important, could it? His face was cold, his mouth trembling, asking, Who won the presidential election yesterday? The man behind the desk laughed. You choking? You know very well. Deutscher, of course. Who else? Not that fool weakling Keith. We got an Iron Man now, a man with guts. The official stopped. What's wrong? Eccles moaned. He dropped to his knees. He scrabbled at the golden butterfly with shaking fingers. Can't we, he pleaded to the world, to himself, to the officials, to the machine. Can't we take it back? Can't we make it alive again? Can't we start over? Can't we? He did not move. Eyes shut. He waited, shivering. He heard Travis breathe loud in the room. He heard Travis shift his rifle, click the safety catch, and raise the weapon. There was a sound of thunder. The end. I hope you enjoyed that one. Now on to our next story. And this will be The Martian, also by Ray Bradbury. A little less intense, but just as cerebral. I hope you enjoy it. September 2036. The Martian. By Ray Bradbury. The blue mountains lifted into the rain, and the rain fell down into the long canals, and old Lafarge and his wife came out of their house to watch. First rain this season, Lafarge pointed out. It's good, said his wife. Very welcome. They shut the door inside. They warmed their hands at a fire. They shivered. In the distance, through the window, they saw rain gleaming on the sides of the rocket which had brought them from Earth. There's only one thing, said Lafarge, looking at his hands. What's that? Asked his wife. I wish we could have brought Tom with us. Oh, now, Laffy, I won't start again. I'm sorry. We came here to enjoy our old age in peace, not to think of Tom. He's been dead so long now, we should try to forget him and everything on Earth. You're right, he said, and turned his hands again to the heat. He gazed into the fire. I won't speak of it any more. I just miss driving out to Green Lawn Park every Sunday to put flowers on his marker. It used to be our only excursion. The blue rain fell gently upon the house. At 9 o'clock they went to bed and lay quietly hand in hand. He 55, she 60. in the raining darkness. Anna, he called softly. Yes, she replied. Did you hear something? They both listened to the rain and the wind. Nothing, she said. Someone whistling, he said. No, I didn't hear it. I'm going to get up to see anyhow. He put on his robe and walked through the house to the front door. Hesitating, he pulled the door wide, and the rain fell cold upon his face. The wind blew. In the dooryard stood a small figure. Lightning cracked the sky, and a wash of white color illumined the face, looking in at old Lafarge there in the doorway. Who's there? Called Lafarge, trembling. No answer. Who is it? What do you want? Still not a word. He felt very weak and tired and numb. Who are you? He cried. His wife entered behind him and took his arm. Why are you shouting? A small boy is standing in the yard and won't answer me, said the old man, trembling. He looks like Tom. Come to bed, you're dreaming. But he's there, see for yourself. He pulled the door wider to let her see. The cold wind blew, and the thin rain fell upon the soil, and the figure stood looking at them with distant eyes. The old woman held to the doorway. Go away, she said, waving one hand. Go away. Doesn't it look like Tom? Asked the old man. The figure did not move. I'm afraid, said the old woman. Lock the door and come to bed. I won't have anything to do with it. She vanished, moaning to herself in the bedroom. The old man stood with the wind raining coldness on his hands. Tom, he called softly. Tom, if that's you, if by some chance it is you, Tom, I'll leave the door unlatched. And if you're cold and want to come in to warm yourself, just come in later and lie by the hearth. There's some fur rugs there. He shut, but did not lock the door. His wife felt him return to bed and shuddered. It's a terrible night. I feel so old, she said, sobbing. Hush, hush, he gentled her and held her in his arms. Go to sleep. After a long while, she slept, and then very quietly, as he listened, he heard the front door open, the rain and wind come in, the door shut. He heard soft footsteps on the hearth and a gentle breathing. Tom, he said to himself. Lightning struck in the sky and broke the blackness apart. In the morning, the sun was very hot. Mr. Lafarge opened the door into the living room and glanced all about quickly. The hearth rugs were empty. Lafarge sighed. I'm getting old, he said. He went out to walk to the canal to fetch a bucket of clear water to wash in. At the front door, he almost knocked young Tom down, carrying a bucket in his He knocked Tom down, carrying in a bucket already filled to the brim. Good morning, Father. Morning, Tom. The old man fell aside. The young boy, barefooted, hurried across the room, set the bucket down, and turned, smiling. It's a fine day. Yes, it is, said the old man incredulously. The boy acted as if nothing was unusual. He began to wash his face with the water. The old man moved forward. Tom, how did you get here? You're alive? Shouldn't I be? The boy glanced up. But Tom, Greenlawn Park, every Sunday, the flowers. Lafarge had to sit down. The boy came and stood before him and took his hand. The old man felt of the fingers warm and firm. You're really here? It's not a dream? You do want me to be here, don't you? The boy seemed worried. Yes, yes, Tom. Then why ask questions? Accept me. But your mother, the shock. Don't worry about her. During the night, I sang to both of you, and you'll accept me more because of it, especially her. I know what the shock is. Wait till she comes. You'll see. He laughed, shaking his head of coppery curled hair. His eyes were very blue and clear. Good morning, Laffy. Tom. Mother came from the bedroom, putting her hair up into a bun. Isn't it a fine day? Tom turned to laugh in his father's face. You see? They ate a very good lunch, all three of them, in the shade behind the house. Mrs. Lafarge had found an old bottle of sunflower wine she had put away, and they all had a drink of it. Mr. Lafarge had never seen his wife's face so bright. If there was any doubt in her mind about Tom, she didn't voice it. It was a completely natural thing to her, and it was also becoming natural to Lafarge himself. While Mother cleared the dishes, Lafarge leaned toward his son and said confidentially, How old are you now, son? Don't you know, Father? 14, of course. Who are you really? You can't be Tom, but you are someone. Who? Don't, startled the boy, who put his hands to his face. You can tell me, said the old man. I'll understand. You're a Martian, aren't you? I've heard tales of the Martians, nothing definite. Stories about how rare Martians are, and when they come among us, they come as Earthmen. There's something about you. You're Tom, and yet you're not. Why can't you accept me and stop talking? Cried the boy. His hands completely shielded his face. Don't doubt, please don't doubt me. He turned and ran from the table. Tom, come back. But the boy ran off along the canal toward the distant town. Where's Tom going? Asked Anna, returning for more dishes. She looked at her husband's face. Did you say something to bother him? Anna, he said, taking her hand. Anna, do you remember anything about Green Lawn Park, a marker, and Tom having pneumonia? What are you talking about? She laughed. Never mind, he said quietly. In the distance, the dust drifted down after Tom had run along the canal rim. At 5 p.m, with the sunset, Tom returned. He looked doubtfully at his father. Are you going to ask me anything? He wanted to know. No questions, said Lafarge. The boy smiled his white smile. Swell. Where have you been? Near the town. I almost didn't come back. I was almost... The boy sought for a word. Trapped. How do you mean trapped? I passed a small tin house by the canal and I was almost made, so I couldn't come back here ever again to see you. I don't know how to explain it to you. There's no way. I can't tell you. Even I don't know. It's strange. I don't want to talk about it. We won't then. Better wash up, boy. Supper time. The boy ran. Perhaps 10 minutes later, a boat floated down the serene surface of the canal, a tall, lank man with black hair pulling it along with leisurely drives of his arms. Evening, Brother Lafarge, she said, pausing at his task. Evening, Saul. What's the word? All kinds of words tonight. You know that fellow named Nomland who lives down the canal in the tin hut? Lafarge stiffened. Yes. You know what sort of rascal he was? Rumor had it he left Earth because he killed a man. Saul leaned on his wet pole, gazing at Lafarge. Remember the name of the man he killed? Gillings, wasn't it? Right, Gillings. Well, about 2 hours ago, Mr. Nomland came running to town crying about how he had seen Gillings alive here on Mars today, this afternoon. He tried to get the jail to lock him up safe. The jail wouldn't. So Nomland went home, and 20 minutes ago, as I get the story, blew his brains out with a gun. I just came from there. Well, well, said Lafarge. The darndest things happen, said Saul. Well, good night, Lafarge. Good night. The boat drifted on down the serene canal waters. Supper's hot, called the old woman. Mr. Lafarge sat down to his supper and, knife in hand, looked over at Tom. Tom, he said, what did you do this afternoon? Nothing, said Tom, his mouth full. Why? Just wanted to know. The old man tucked his napkin in. At 7 that night, the old woman wanted to go to town. Haven't been there in months, she said, but Tom desisted. I'm afraid of the town, he said. The people, I don't want to go there. Such talk for a grown boy, said Anna. I won't listen to it. You'll come along. I say so. Anna, if the boy doesn't want to, started the old man. But there was no arguing. She hustled them into the canal boat, and they floated up the canal under the evening stars. Tom, lying on his back, his eyes closed. Asleep or not, there was no telling. The old man looked at him steadily, wondering. Who is this, he thought, in need of love as much as we? Who is he, and what is he, that out of loneliness he comes into the alien camp and assumes the voice and face of memory and stands among us, accepted and happy at last? From what mountain, what cave, what small last race of people remaining on this world when the rockets came from Earth? The old man shook his head. There was no way to know. To this, to all purposes, was Tom. The old man looked at the town ahead and did not like it, but then he returned to thoughts of Tom and Anna again, and he thought to himself, perhaps this is wrong to keep Tom but a little while, when nothing can come of it but trouble and sorrow. But how are we to give up the very thing we've wanted, no matter if it stays only a day and is gone, making the emptiness emptier, the dark nights darker, the rainy nights wetter? You might as well force the food from our mouths as take this one from us. And he looked at the boy slumbering so peacefully at the bottom of the boat. The boy whimpered with some dream. The people, he murmured in his sleep, changing and changing, the trap. There, there, boy. Lafarge stroked the boy's soft curls, and Tom ceased. Lafarge helped his wife and son from the boat. Here we are, Anna smiled at all the lights, listening to the music from the drinking houses, the pianos, the phonographs, watching people arm in arm striding by in the crowded streets. I wish I was home, said Tom. You never talked that way before, said the mother. You always liked Saturday nights in town. Stay close to me, whispered Tom. I don't want to get trapped. Anna overheard. Stop talking that way. Come along. Lafarge noticed that the boy held his hand. Lafarge squeezed it. I'll stick with you, Tommy boy. He looked at the throngs coming and going, and it worried him also. We won't stay long. Nonsense, we'll spend the evening, said Anna. They crossed a street, and 3 drunken men careened into them. There was much confusion, a separation, a wheeling about, and then Lafarge stood stunned. Tom was gone. Where is he? Asked Anna irritably. Him, always running off alone, any chance he gets. Tom, she called. Mr. Lafarge hurried through the crowd, but Tom was gone. He'll come back. He'll be at the boat when we leave, said Anna certainly. Steering her husband back toward the motion picture theater, there was a sudden commotion in the crowd, and a man and a woman rushed by Lafarge. He recognized them, Joe Spaulding and his wife. They were gone before he could speak to them. Looking back anxiously, he purchased the tickets for the theater and allowed his wife to draw him into the unwelcome darkness. Tom was not at the landing at 11 o'clock. Mrs. Lafarge turned very pale. Now, Mother, said Lafarge, don't worry. I'll find him. Wait here. Hurry back. Her voice faded into the ripple of the water. He walked through the night streets, hands in his pockets. All about, lights were going out one by one. A few people were still leaning out their windows, for the night was warm, even though the sky still held storm clouds from time to time among the stars. As he walked, he recalled the boy's constant references to being trapped, his fear of crowds and cities. There was no sense in it, thought the old man tiredly. Perhaps the boy was gone forever. Perhaps he had never been. Lafarge turned in at a particular alley, watching the numbers. Hello there, Lafarge. A man sat in his doorway, smoking a pipe. Hello, Mike. You and your woman quarrel? You out walking it off? No, just walking. You look like you lost something. Speaking of lost things, said Mike, somebody got found this evening. You know Joe Spaulding? You remember his daughter, Lavinia? Yes, Lafarge was cold. It all seemed a repeated dream. He knew which words would come next. Lavinia came home tonight, said Mike, smoking. You recall she was lost on the Dead Sea bottoms about a month ago? They found what they thought was her body badly deteriorated, and ever since the Spaulding family's been no good. Joe went around saying she wasn't dead. That wasn't really her body. Guess he was right. Tonight Lavinia showed up. Where? Lafarge felt his breath come swiftly, his heart pounding. On Main Street, the Spauldings were buying tickets for a show, and there, all of a sudden in the crowd, was Lavinia. Must have been quite a scene. She didn't know them first off. They followed her half down a street and spoke to her. Then she remembered. Did you see her? No, but I heard her singing. Remember how she used to sing the bonny banks of Loch Lomond? I heard her trilling out for her father a while ago over there in their house. It was good to hear her, such a beautiful girl. A shame. I thought her dead, and now, with her back again, it's fine. Here now, you look weak yourself. Better come in for a spot of whiskey. Thanks. No, Mike. The old man moved away. He heard Mike say good night and did not answer, but fixed his eyes upon the 2-story building where rambling clusters of crimson Martian flowers lay upon the high crystal roof. Around back, above the garden, was a twisted iron balcony, and the windows above were lighted. It was very late, and still he thought to himself, what will happen to Anna if I don't bring Tom home with me? This second shock, this second death, what will it do to her? Will she remember the first death too? And this dream and the sudden vanishing? Oh God, I've got to find Tom, or what will come of Anna? Poor Anna, waiting there at the landing. He paused and lifted his head. Somewhere above, voices bade other soft voices good night. Doors turned and shut, lights dimmed, and a gentle singing continued. A moment later, a girl, no more than 18, very lovely, came out upon the balcony. Lafarge called up through the wind that was blowing. The girl turned and looked down. Who's there? She cried. It's me, said the old man, and realizing this reply to be silly and strange, fell silent, his lips working. Should he call out, Tom, my son, this is your father? How to speak to her? She would think him quite insane and summon her parents. The girl bent forward in the blowing light. I know you, she replied softly. Please go. There's nothing you can do. You've got to come back. It escaped Lafarge before he could prevent it. The moonlit figure above drew into shadow, so there was no identity, only a voice. I'm not your son anymore, it said. We should never have come to town. Anna's waiting at the landing. I'm sorry, said the quiet voice, but what can I do? I'm happy here. I'm loved, even as you loved me. I am what I am, and I take what can be taken. Too late now. They've caught me. But Anna, the shock to her, think of that. The thoughts are too strong in this house. It's like being imprisoned. I can't change myself back. You are Tom. You were Tom, weren't you? You aren't joking with an old man. You're not really Lavinia Spaulding. I'm not anyone. I'm just myself. Wherever I am something. And now I'm something you can't help. You're not safe in the town. It's better out on the canal where no one can hurt you, pleaded the old man. That's true, the voice hesitated. But I must consider these people now. How would they feel if in the morning I was gone again, this time for good? Anyway, the mother knows what I am. She guessed, even as you did. I think they all guessed, but didn't question. You don't question Providence. If you can't have the reality, a dream is just as good. Perhaps I'm not their dead one back, but I'm something almost better to them, an ideal shaped by their minds. I have a choice of hurting them or your wife. They're a family of 5. They can stand your loss better. Please, said the voice. I'm tired. The old man's voice hardened. You've got to come. I can't let Anna be hurt again. You're our son. You're my son. And you belong to us. No, please. The shadow trembled. You don't belong to this house or these people. No, don't do this to me. Tom, son, listen to me. Come back. Slip down the vines, boy. Come along. Anna's waiting. We'll give you a good home, everything you want. He stared and stared upward, willing it to be. The shadows drifted. The vines rustled. At last the quiet voice said, All right, Father. Tom! In the moonlight, the quick figure of a boy slid down through the vines. Lafarge put up his arms to catch him. The room lights above flashed on. A voice issued from one of the grilled windows. Who's down there? Hurry, boy. More lights, more voices. Stop, I have a gun. Vinny, are you all right? A running of feet. Together the old man and the boy ran across the garden. A shot sounded. The bullet struck the wall as they slammed the gate. Tom, you that way. I'll go here and lead them off. Run to the canal. I'll meet you there in 10 minutes, boy. They parted. The moon hid behind a cloud. The old man ran in the darkness. Anna, I'm here. The old woman helped him, trembling, into the boat. Where's Tom? He'll be here in a minute, panted Lafarge. They turned to watch the alleys and the sleeping town. Late strollers were still out. A policeman, a night watchman, a rocket pilot, several lonely men coming home from some nocturnal rendezvous, 4 men and women issuing from a bar, laughing. Music played dimly somewhere. Why doesn't he come? Asked the old woman. He'll come. But Lafarge was not certain. Suppose the boy had been caught again, somehow, some way in his travel down to the landing, running through the midnight streets between the dark houses. It was a long run, even for a young boy, but he should have reached here first. And now, far away along the moonlit avenue, a figure ran. Lafarge cried out and then silenced himself, for also far away was another sound of voices and running feet. Lights blazed on in the window after window. Across the open plaza leading to the landing, the one figure ran. It was not Tom. It was only a running shape with a face like silver shining in the light of the globes clustered about the plaza. And as it rushed nearer, it became more familiar until, when it reached the landing, it was Tom. Anna flung up her hands. Lafarge hurried to cast off, but already it was too late. For out of the avenue and across the silent plaza now came one man, another, a woman, two other men, Mr. Spaulding, all running. They stopped, bewildered. They stared about, wanting to go back because this could only be a nightmare. It was quite insane, but they came on again, hesitantly, stopping, starting. It was too late. The night the event was over. Lafarge twisted the mooring rope in his fingers. He was very cold and lonely. The people raised and put down their feet in the moonlight, drifting with great speed, wide-eyed, until the crowd, all 10 of them, halted at the landing. They peered wildly down into the boat. They cried out, "Don't move, Lafarge!" Spaulding had a gun. And now it was evident what had happened. Tom, flashing through the moonlit streets alone, passing people. A policeman seeing the figure dart past. The policeman pivoting, staring at the face, calling a name, giving pursuit. "You, stop!" Seeing a criminal face. All along the way, the same thing. Men here, women there, night watchmen, rocket pilots. The swift figure, meaning everything to them, all identities, all persons, all names. How many different names had been uttered in the last 5 minutes? How many different faces shaped over Tom's face? All wrong. All down the way, the pursued and the pursuing, the dream and the dreamers, the quarry and the hounds. All down the way, the sudden revealment, the flash of familiar eyes, the cry of an old name, the remembrances of other times, the crowd multiplying, everyone leaping forward as, like an image reflected from 10,000 mirrors, 10,000 eyes, the running dream came and went. A different face to those ahead, those behind, those yet to be met, those unseen. And here they all are now at the boat, wanting the dream for their own, just as we want him to be Tom, not Lavinia or William or Roger or any other, thought Lafarge. But it's all done now. The thing has gone too far. Come up, all of you, Spaulding ordered them. Tom stepped up from the boat. Spaulding seized his wrist. "You're coming home with me. I know." "Wait," said the policeman. "He's my prisoner. Name's Dexter, wanted for murder." "No," a woman sobbed. "It's my husband. I guess I know my husband." Other voices objected. The crowds moved in. Mrs. Lafarge shielded Tom. "This is my son. You have no right to accuse him of anything. We're going home right now." As for Tom, he was trembling and shaking violently. He looked very sick. The crowd thickened about him, putting out their wild hands, seizing and demanding. Tom screamed. Before their eyes he changed. He was Tom and James and a man named Switchman, another named Butterfield. He was the town mayor and the young girl Judith and the husband William and the wife Clarice. He was melting wax, shaping to their minds. He shouted. They pressed forward, pleading. He screamed, threw out his hands, his face dissolving to each demand. "Tom!" cried Lafarge. "Alice!" another. "William!" They snatched his wrists, swirled him about until, with one last shriek of horror, he fell. He lay on the stones, melted wax, cooling. His face, all faces, one eye blue, the other golden. Hair that was brown, red, yellow, black, one eyebrow thick, one thin, one hand large, one small. They stood over him and put their fingers to their mouths. They bent down. "He's dead," someone said at last. It began to rain. The rain fell upon the people, and they looked up at the sky, slowly, and then more quickly. They turned and walked away, and then started running, scattering from the scene. In a minute the place was desolate. Only Mr. and Mrs. Lafarge remained, looking down, hand in hand, terrified. The rain fell upon the upturned, unrecognizable face. Anna said nothing, but began to cry. "Come along home, Anna. There's nothing we can do," said the old man. They climbed down into the boat and went back along the canal in the darkness. They entered their house and lit a small fire and warmed their hands. They went to bed and lay together, cold and thin, listening to the rain returned to the roof above them. "Listen," said Lafarge at midnight. "Did you hear something?" "Nothing, nothing." "I'll go look anyway." He fumbled across the dark room and waited by the outer door for a long time before he opened it. He pulled the door wide and looked out. Rain poured from the black sky upon the empty dooryard, into the canal, and among the blue mountains. He waited 5 minutes, and then softly, his hands wet, he shut and bolted the door. The end. I hope you have enjoyed these stories. It's been my honor and pleasure to share them with you. I am glad to have been part of this. I'm not sure if the bow comes back on so that we can close it, or if I should just say thank you. And I've had a great time reading to you. I hope you have liked the stories also. And I saw a really great picture. I happen to be a little library steward, a free little library where you can come and take a book and leave a book. And another steward in another city made a picture that was really awesome. It was zombie hands reaching up, and in fun words, she painted, "Want brains? Read a book." And I thought that was great. So go and read and have an enjoyable Halloween season. Thank you.